The centurion was a tough man. He had to be. He was a Roman soldier, tasked with keeping order in a chaotic world. His life was filled with battles, bloodshed, and the harsh realities of war. He had seen things that most people couldn't even imagine, yet on this day something was different. He felt a knot in his stomach, a sense of unease he couldn't quite place. He was about to oversee the execution of a man named Jesus. This Jesus was no ordinary criminal. He was a teacher, a healer, a man who spoke of love and forgiveness. The centurion had heard whispers of his miracles, of the sick being made well and the blind being given sight. He had seen the crowds that flocked to Jesus, drawn to his words of hope and compassion. Yet here he was, condemned to death by crucifixion, the most brutal and humiliating form of punishment. The centurion had supervised many crucifixions. It was a gruesome task, but one he performed with grim efficiency. He knew the drill. But this time something felt different. As he looked at Jesus, he saw a strange sense of peace in his eyes, a calmness that defied the horror of the situation. The day of the crucifixion dawned bright and clear. The air was thick with anticipation as people poured into Jerusalem from the surrounding countryside. Word had spread like wildfire about the man called Jesus, and many were curious to see what would become of him. Some came to mock, others to mourn, but all were united by a sense of morbid fascination. The centurion led his men through the crowded streets, their armor glinting in the morning sun. They cleared a path through the throng, their faces grim and resolute. They reached the place of execution, a hill called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. It was a bleak and desolate spot, stripped bare of vegetation and baking under the relentless sun. The centurion watched impassively as his men prepared for the execution. They stripped Jesus and divided his garments among themselves, casting lots for his seamless robe. Finally, they led him to the cross, a rough-hewn wooden beam that lay waiting on the ground. There was an air of solemnity, of cosmic significance that hung heavy in the air. The soldiers went about their grim work with practiced efficiency. They hammered nails through Jesus' hands and feet, the sound echoing across the hillside. Jesus cried out in pain, a raw and primal sound that sent shivers down the centurion's spine. But even in his agony, Jesus did not curse his tormentors. Instead, he prayed, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." The centurion had never heard such words before. Forgiveness? For these men, these brutes who had nailed him to a cross? It was unfathomable. And yet there was a sincerity in Jesus' voice, a depth of compassion that resonated within the centurion's soul. With a grunt, the soldiers hoisted the cross upright, dropping it into the prepared hole with a sickening thud. Jesus' body sagged against the nails, his head crowned with thorns. The crowd surged forward, eager for a closer look at the spectacle. Then something extraordinary happened. The sky began to darken. The crowd grew silent, their jeers and lamentations silenced by a primordial fear. The darkness deepened, blotting out the sun until it was as dark as night. The air grew heavy and oppressive, charged with a strange energy that made the hairs on the back of the centurion's neck stand on end. Then the earth began to shake. At first, it was just a tremor, a subtle vibration that rippled through the ground. But it quickly intensified, growing into a mighty earthquake that sent the crowd reeling. Rocks tumbled down the hillside, and cracks appeared in the earth, as if the very foundations of the world were crumbling. He looked up and saw that the veil of the temple had been torn in two from top to bottom. The centurion watched in stunned silence as the earthquake subsided, and the darkness began to lift. He had witnessed countless battles, seen death in its many forms, but nothing could have prepared him for the events of this day. The unnatural darkness, the violent earthquake, the tearing of the temple veil, they all pointed to something beyond his comprehension, something both terrifying and awe-inspiring. He looked at Jesus, hanging limp on the cross, his lifeblood draining away. Yet even in death there was a majesty about him, a serenity that transcended the brutality of his crucifixion. And in that moment, a profound realization dawned upon the centurion. This was no ordinary man. This was the Son of God. The words escaped his lips before he could stop them. Truly, this man was the Son of God. The other soldiers looked at him in astonishment, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. But the centurion didn't care. He knew what he had seen. He had witnessed the power of God firsthand, and it had changed him forever. The centurion's story is a powerful reminder that salvation is available to everyone, regardless of their past deeds. This Roman soldier, a man complicit in the greatest act of injustice in human history, found forgiveness and redemption at the foot of the cross. And if he could find forgiveness, so can we. The events surrounding Jesus' crucifixion, as witnessed by the centurion, were not mere natural phenomena. They were divine signs pointing to the magnitude of what was taking place. The darkness that enveloped the land symbolized the spiritual darkness that had fallen upon humanity. The earthquake represented the shaking of the old order, the breaking down of the barriers that separated people from God. The centurion recognized these signs for what they were. He saw in Jesus' suffering and death the ultimate act of love, the sacrifice that would reconcile humanity to God. The story of the centurion is a story of transformation, of hope, of the boundless love and mercy of God. It is a story that speaks to the very core of our being, reminding us that no matter what we have done, no matter how far we have strayed, there is always a way back to God. Take a moment to reflect on the centurion's journey. Consider the events he witnessed, the emotions he must have felt, and the profound transformation he underwent. Ask yourself, what does this story mean to me? How can I, like the centurion, find forgiveness and new life in Christ? Let the story of the centurion inspire you to seek a deeper relationship with God. If you found this video useful, please share your experiences in the comments below and subscribe to our channel. Also, don't go just yet though. Watch the next video on your screen.